What would you do if everyone you loved believed a lie about you, and killing the liar meant losing everything? In the Thornridge Pack, Kayla was despised, rejected, and called cursed, but she wasn't broken. She was the only one awake in a nightmare crafted by a monster no one else could see. For 5 years, she played the villain to save them all. And when they finally forced her to fight for a mate she didn't want, she did something no one expected. She fought for herself instead. This is her story. A story of sacrifice, survival, and the brutal price of being right when everyone else is wrong. If you're ready for betrayal, bloodshed, and a woman who refused to kneel, stay until the end. Hit that like button, drop your city in the comments, and let's begin. The scent of blood hung in the air long before Kayla Thornridge reached the council hall. She stopped just outside the heavy oak doors, her boots sinking into the mud still wet from last night's rain. Through the narrow crack between door and frame, she could hear them. Her father's voice, steady and cold as iron. The murmur of the pack elders, low and deliberate. They were deciding her fate again, as if it wasn't already written in stone. Kayla pressed her palm against the weathered wood, but didn't push. Not yet. Inside, they would be sitting in a half circle around the fire, faces lit by flickering orange light. Her father at the center, the councilmen on either side. And standing somewhere in the shadows, smiling that perfect gentle smile, would be Lucien. Always Lucien. Her jaw tightened. She forced herself to breathe slowly, counting the inhales like her mother used to teach her when she was small. 1, 2, 3. But her mother was gone now, dead 4 winters past, and no one had taught Kayla how to survive what came after. "She's impossible," one of the elders was saying. His voice carried through the door, rough with age and irritation. 3 suitors in as many months, all of them strong, all of them willing, and she drove every single one away. "She didn't just drive them away, Councilman Varn," another voice cut in, sharper. "She humiliated them, made fools of them in front of the entire pack. That last one, what was his name, Roland? He left with his tail between his legs, swearing he'd never return to Thornridge territory." A pause. Then her father's voice, low and deliberate. "Kayla has always been difficult. Difficult." The word landed like a stone in her chest. She'd heard it 1,000 times, from the women who whispered when she passed, from the younger wolves who wouldn't meet her eyes, from her own father, who said it with the weariness of a man who had tried everything and found nothing that worked. "Difficult doesn't cover it, Alpha Garen," Varn said. "She's a liability. Unmarried at 23, with a temper that makes grown alphas think twice. And meanwhile, your younger daughter is everything Kayla is not. Gentle, obedient, mateable." Kayla's fingers curled into a fist against the door. Mira. Of course they would bring up Mira. Her little sister was 18, soft-spoken, and adored by everyone who met her. Where Kayla was sharp edges and cold silences, Mira was warmth and laughter. Where Kayla repelled, Mira attracted. It wasn't Mira's fault. It never had been. But it didn't make it easier to hear. "Mira is not the issue here," her father said, and Kayla could almost see him leaning forward, elbows on his knees the way he did when he was choosing his words carefully. "The issue is that Kayla refuses every match we arrange, every alliance we offer. She acts as though she's above it all." "Because she thinks she is," someone muttered, "or because she's protecting you." The new voice was smooth, warm, almost kind. "Lucien." Kayla's stomach twisted. "Protecting us?" Varn scoffed. "From what?" "From herself, perhaps," Lucien said. There was a pause, and Kayla could imagine him stepping forward into the firelight, his expression thoughtful, concerned. "Kayla has always carried a great burden. I've seen it in her eyes. A fear, maybe. Or a wound that never healed. It's possible she believes she's unworthy of the bonds the rest of us take for granted." The bastard. Kayla wanted to scream. She wanted to kick the door open and tell them all the truth, that Lucien was the wound, the poison, the rot at the center of everything, that he had twisted their minds so thoroughly they couldn't see what was right in front of them, that every word he spoke was a lie wrapped in honey. But she didn't, because they wouldn't hear her. She'd tried once, 2 years ago, when she'd first realized what Lucien was. She'd gone to her father in the dead of night, shaking with fury and fear, and told him everything. That Lucien wasn't what he seemed, that he was manipulating the pack, bending their thoughts, making himself beloved while painting her as the problem. Her father had looked at her with something close to pity. "Kayla," he'd said quietly, "Lucien has been nothing but loyal to this pack. He's saved lives. He's earned the trust of everyone here. If you're going to make accusations like this, you need proof." But there was no proof, nothing she could show him, nothing she could say that wouldn't sound like the ravings of a jealous, bitter woman. And so she'd learned to stay silent, to play the role they'd written for her, the unmateable daughter, the problem child, the one who drove away every chance at happiness because she was too broken to accept it. It was easier that way. Safer. Because the truth was, Kayla wasn't immune to Lucian's power by accident. She was immune because of what she was. And if the pack ever found out, they wouldn't just reject her, they'd kill her. "Enough debating," her father said, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "We've tried patience, we've tried reason. It's time for a different approach." Kayla's breath caught. "What are you proposing, Alpha?" Varn asked. "A mating trial." Silence. Then, slowly, murmurs of agreement began to ripple through the room. "A trial," Lucian said thoughtfully. "Bold, and fitting, perhaps, for someone as singular as Kayla." Kayla's heart slammed against her ribs. A mating trial. It was an old tradition, one that hadn't been invoked in decades. A test of strength, cunning, and dominance, designed to prove who was worthy of claiming an alpha's daughter, and in some cases, the pack itself. It was brutal, public, and final. Whoever won would have Kayla, and there would be no refusal. "We'll send word across the territories," her father continued. "Any unmated alpha who wishes to compete may enter. The trials will test everything: combat, strategy, endurance. The winner will take Kayla as his mate and stand beside me as the future leader of this pack." "And if she resists?" someone asked. "She won't," her father said flatly, "because this time she won't have a choice." Kayla stepped back from the door. Her hands were shaking. She turned and walked away before anyone could sense her there, her boots squelching softly in the mud. The forest loomed ahead, dark and vast, and she slipped into it without looking back. The clearing she found was small, hidden beneath a canopy of pines so thick the moonlight barely touched the ground. Kayla sank onto a fallen log and pressed her palms against her face, forcing herself to think. A mating trial. She'd expected pressure, expected her father to tighten the screws. But this was something else entirely. This was a declaration, a spectacle, a way of saying, Kayla Thornridge will be tamed one way or another. And Lucien would love it. He would stand on the sidelines, watching, smiling, as alpha after alpha fought for the right to claim her. He would whisper in their ears, twist their thoughts, make sure that whoever won was someone he could control, someone who would never question him, someone who would bring Kayla to heel and keep her there. Unless she stopped it first. But how? She couldn't expose Lucien. She'd tried. And even if she found a way to prove what he was, it wouldn't matter. His influence ran too deep. The pack loved him, trusted him. They would never believe her over him. So what did that leave? She could run. The thought came and went in an instant. Running meant abandoning Mira, abandoning her father, leaving them to Lucian's mercy. No, she couldn't do that, which left only one option. She would have to play, enter the trial, survive it, and find a way to outmaneuver Lucien without anyone realizing what she was doing. It was a terrible plan, but it was the only one she had. A twig snapped behind her. Kayla was on her feet in an instant, her body coiled, ready to run or fight. But it was only Mira, stepping into the clearing with her hands raised, her face pale in the moonlight. "It's just me," Mira said softly. Kayla exhaled and sat back down. "You shouldn't be out here. Neither should you." Mira came closer, her steps careful, like she was approaching a wounded animal. "I heard them talking about the trial. Everyone's heard by now. Kayla, I don't want to talk about it." "Well, I do." Mira sat down beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "This isn't fair. You shouldn't have to—" "Fair doesn't matter," Kayla said. "It never has." Mira was quiet for a moment. Then in a small voice she asked, "Why do you do this to yourself?" Kayla turned to look at her. "Do what?" "Push everyone away. Make them hate you. You act like you don't care, but I know you do. I've seen the way you look when you think no one's watching, like you're... Mira trailed off, her eyes shining with tears. Like you're drowning. Kayla's throat tightened. She looked away. You don't understand. Then help me understand. I can't. Why not? Because if I tell you the truth, you'll think I'm insane. Because Lucien's poison runs so deep that even you, sweet Mira, wouldn't believe me. Because the only way to protect you is to keep you in the dark. Because some things are better left alone, Kayla said finally. Mira reached for her hand. Kayla almost pulled away, but something stopped her. Maybe it was the warmth of Mira's touch. Maybe it was the way her sister looked at her, like she still believed Kayla was worth saving. I'm scared for you, Mira whispered. Don't be, Kayla said. I'll survive. I always do. But even as she said it, she wasn't sure she believed it. The announcement went out 3 days later. By then, the entire pack knew. Kayla could feel their eyes on her wherever she went, curious, judgmental, hungry for drama. The younger wolves whispered and giggled when she passed. The older ones shook their heads, their expressions a mix of pity and disdain. Some of them seemed excited. A mating trial was the kind of spectacle they hadn't seen in years, and the promise of bloodshed and glory brought a festive energy to the territory. Merchants set up stalls along the main road, selling food and trinkets. Children ran through the streets, playing at being warriors. Kayla avoided all of it. She spent her days in the forest, running the old trails until her lungs burned and her legs trembled. She practiced her combat forms in the clearing where her mother used to train her, the movements coming back like muscle memory. Strike, block, pivot, again. She hadn't fought in years. Not really. Not since the night Lucienne arrived. But she remembered. On the fourth day, she returned to the house to find her father waiting for her in the hall. He stood with his back to the fireplace, his arms folded across his chest, his expression unreadable. He looked older than she remembered. The lines around his eyes had deepened, and there was more gray in his hair than there had been a year ago. Kayla, he said. She stopped in the doorway. Father, we need to talk. About the trial? About your behavior during the trial. He stepped forward, his gaze hard. I want to make something very clear. This is not a game. This is not an opportunity for you to embarrass this family any further. You will conduct yourself with dignity. You will treat the competitors with respect. And when a winner is chosen, you will accept him without complaint. Kayla met his eyes. And if I don't? Her father's jaw tightened. Then you will leave this pack permanently. The words hung in the air between them. Kayla felt something cold settle in her chest. You'd exile me. If you force my hand, yes. She wanted to laugh, or scream, or both. Instead, she just nodded. Understood. Good. He turned back to the fire, dismissing her. The first competitors arrive tomorrow. Be ready. Kayla left without another word. The alphas began to arrive the next morning. Kayla watched from the high window of her room as they came, one by one, their parties setting up camps along the borders of Thornridge land. Some came alone. Others brought entire entourages, warriors, advisors, servants. They planted banners and built fires, staking their claim before the trials had even begun. There were more of them than she'd expected. At least 30, maybe more. Big men, hard men. Men who looked at her father's hall like it was a throne they intended to sit on, and at Kayla like she was a stepping stone to get there. She recognized a few faces. Roland, the one she'd humiliated 3 months ago, had returned, probably to salvage his pride. He was a brute from the eastern packs, all muscle and ego, with a reputation for taking what he wanted and breaking anyone who got in his way. There was Garrett, a scarred wolf from the northern territories, known for his temper and his appetite for violence. He'd killed 2 men in a dominance fight last year and walked away without a scratch. And then there was a cluster of younger alphas she didn't know. Lean, hungry-looking men with sharp eyes and sharper smiles. They moved like predators, all of them, watching each other as much as they watched the hall. Kayla's gaze moved over them, cataloging, calculating. And then she saw him. Darius? He stood at the edge of the camp, arms folded, his gaze fixed on the hall. He looked older, harder. His hair was longer, pulled back in a rough knot, and there was a new scar running along his jaw. But it was him, Darius Blackmore, the boy she'd loved when she was 17, the boy who'd left without saying goodbye. Kayla's hands tightened on the windowsill. He wasn't supposed to be here. She didn't leave her room for the rest of the day. Mira brought her food, but Kayla barely touched it. She sat by the window, watching the camps below, her mind racing. Darius. She hadn't seen him in 5 years, hadn't spoken to him in longer. The last time they'd been in the same room, he'd looked at her like she'd ripped his heart out. And maybe she had. Maybe that was exactly what she'd done when she'd told him to leave and never come back. But she'd had no choice. Lucien had started whispering in Darius's ear, planting doubts, twisting his thoughts. Kayla had seen it happening, the way Darius started questioning her, pulling away, looking at her like she was a stranger. And she'd known, with a sickening certainty, that if she didn't push him away first, Lucien would destroy him. So she'd done the only thing she could. She'd broken his heart, told him she didn't love him, that she'd never loved him, that he was wasting his time. She'd watched him leave, and she'd told herself it was for the best. But now, he was back, and he was here to win her like a prize. That night, Lucien came to see her. She heard his footsteps in the hallway, light and unhurried, and then a soft knock at her door. "Kayla, may I come in?" She didn't answer. The door opened anyway. Lucien stepped inside, closing it softly behind him. He was dressed simply, as always, a plain shirt, dark trousers, nothing that drew attention. But he didn't need to draw attention. He had a way of filling a room just by being in it, a presence that was both magnetic and suffocating. He smiled at her, that warm, gentle smile that made everyone else think he was kind. Kayla wanted to tear it off his face. "You've been hiding," he said. "I've been thinking." "About the trial?" He moved closer, his hands clasped behind his back. "It's quite the spectacle, isn't it? All these strong, ambitious men fighting for the chance to claim you. Your father has outdone himself." Kayla didn't respond. Lucien tilted his head, studying her. "You're angry." "I'm always angry." "True." He laughed softly. "But this is different. You're scared." "I'm not scared of you." "I didn't say you were scared of me." He leaned against the wall, his expression thoughtful. "You're scared of what happens when they win, when one of them takes you, when you lose the last bit of control you have left." Kayla's jaw tightened. "What do you want, Lucien?" "Just to check on you, to make sure you're prepared." "For what?" "For the inevitable." He pushed off the wall and moved toward the door, pausing with his hand on the handle. "You fought so hard for so long, Kayla, and I admire that, truly. But this time, there's no way out. One of these men will win, and when he does, you'll belong to him, and through him, I'll have everything I need." He opened the door. "Sleep well," he said. "The first trial starts tomorrow." And then he was gone. Kayla sat in the silence he left behind, her hands shaking. The first trial was announced at dawn. The pack gathered in the arena, a wide clearing surrounded by wooden stands packed with wolves eager to watch the bloodshed. Kayla stood on the platform beside her father, her expression carefully blank, while the competitors assembled below. There were 34 of them. 34 alphas, all vying for the same prize. Her. Her father stood and raised his hand, and the crowd fell silent. "Welcome," he said, his voice carrying across the arena. "You have come from every corner of our territories to compete for the greatest honor this pack can offer, the hand of my daughter Kayla, and the right to stand beside me as the future leader of Thornridge." The competitors roared their approval. Kayla kept her face neutral. "The trials will test everything," her father continued. "Strength, strategy, endurance. Only the strongest will advance. Only the best will win. And to the victor, glory, power, and a legacy that will last generations." More cheers. Kayla glanced to the side and saw Lucien standing just behind her father's chair, his hands folded, his expression serene. He caught her eye and smiled. "The first trial," her father said, "is simple. Combat, one-on-one matches. No weapons, no rules. Fight until your opponent yields or falls. The winners advance. The losers go home." He gestured to the arena. "Let the trials begin." The first fight was brutal. Two massive alphas, both built like mountains, went at each other with fists and fury. The crowd screamed. Blood spattered the dirt. One of them went down hard. His nose shattered and didn't get up. The second fight was faster. A lean, scarred wolf took down his opponent in under a minute, moving with a speed that left the bigger man gasping. Kayla watched from the platform, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. She didn't care who won. She didn't care who lost. She was just counting the minutes until she could leave. And then Darius stepped into the ring. The crowd went quiet. His opponent was a wolf named Cade, twice Darius's size with arms like tree trunks and a reputation for breaking bones. He grinned as Darius approached, cracking his knuckles. "This won't take long," Cade said. Darius didn't respond. The fight started. Cade lunged fast for his size, swinging a fist like a hammer. But Darius was faster. He ducked under the blow, pivoted, and drove his elbow into Cade's ribs. Cade grunted and swung again. Darius dodged, moving like water, always just out of reach. The crowd started to murmur. Cade was getting frustrated. He charged, trying to use his weight to his advantage, but Darius sidestepped and swept his legs. Cade hit the ground hard, the impact shaking the arena. Darius didn't give him time to recover. He was on him in an instant, pinning him, his forearm pressed against Cade's throat. "Yield," Darius said quietly. Cade struggled, his face red, his breath coming in gasps. "Yield," Darius repeated. Cade's hand slapped the ground. The crowd exploded. Darius stood, breathing hard, and stepped back. Cade rolled onto his side, coughing, defeated. And Darius, still catching his breath, looked up at the platform. His eyes found Kayla's. For a moment, the world went still. Kayla's heart slammed in her chest. She saw recognition flicker in his gaze. Surprise. And then something else. Something darker. Anger. He looked at her like she was a stranger, like she was the enemy. And Kayla realized, with a sinking feeling, that Lucian had gotten to him too. The fights continued through the afternoon. Garrett won his match by sheer brutality, leaving his opponent unconscious in the dirt. Roland won his by outlasting a younger, faster wolf, wearing him down until he collapsed. And then there was a fourth man, a stranger Kayla didn't recognize, tall, lean, with pale eyes and a smile that never reached them. His name was Thorn, and he fought with a cold precision that made Kayla's skin crawl. He won his match in under 2 minutes. By the time the sun began to set, 16 competitors remained. Kayla's father stood and addressed the crowd again. "The first trial is complete," he said. "To those who advanced, congratulations. To those who did not, you fought with honor. The second trial will begin tomorrow at dawn. Rest well." The crowd began to disperse. Kayla turned to leave, but her father's hand on her arm stopped her. "Stay," he said quietly. She stayed. When the arena was empty, her father turned to face her. "You will meet the remaining competitors tonight," he said. "A formal dinner. You will sit among them. You will speak with them. You will show them the respect they deserve." Kayla's stomach turned. "Father, this is not a request." She met his eyes, saw the steel in them. "Fine," she said. "Good." He released her arm. "The dinner is in 2 hours. Don't be late." Kayla wore the dress Mira had laid out for her, a deep green gown that fit too tightly and made her feel like she was suffocating. She braided her hair back from her face and stared at herself in the mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back. She looked like someone's prize. She hated it. The dining hall was already full when she arrived. Long tables had been set up, laden with food and drink. The remaining competitors sat among the pack's elite, talking and laughing, their voices loud and confident. Kayla's father gestured for her to sit beside him at the head table. She did. Lucienne was there, of course, seated on her father's other side. He smiled at her as she sat down. "You look lovely," he said. Kayla ignored him. The dinner began. Kayla picked at her food, barely listening to the conversations around her. The competitors were boasting, as expected, talking about their victories, their territories, their plans for the future. Some of them glanced at her, their eyes hungry. Others ignored her entirely. And then Darius sat down across from her. Kayla's breath caught. He didn't look at her, didn't acknowledge her. He just filled his plate and started eating, his expression hard. "Darius Blackmore," her father said, leaning forward. I didn't expect to see you return. Darius looked up. I heard about the trial. Thought it was worth coming back for. You left Thornridge 5 years ago. What brings you back now? Ambition, Darius said simply. I want to lead, and this is my chance. Her father nodded, seemingly satisfied. But Kayla saw the way Darius's jaw tightened, the way his hands gripped his fork just a little too hard. He was lying, or at least he thought he was telling the truth. Lucien's work, no doubt. You fought well today, her father said. Thank you. And you're aware of what's at stake? I am, her father smiled. Good. I look forward to seeing what you can do in the next trial. Darius nodded and went back to his food. Kayla stared at him, willing him to look at her. He didn't. The dinner dragged on for hours. By the time it ended, Kayla's head was pounding and her chest felt tight. She slipped out of the hall as soon as she could, escaping into the night. She walked without thinking, her feet carrying her toward the river. The water was dark and cold, rushing over the rocks with a sound that drowned out the noise in her head. Kayla stood at the edge, her arms wrapped around herself, and tried to breathe. You looked miserable in there. She spun around. Darius stood a few feet away, his hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. What do you want? Kayla asked. To talk. We have nothing to talk about. Don't we? He stepped closer. You were the one who told me to leave, Kayla. And now here I am, back in your life, competing for the right to marry you. Don't you think that's worth a conversation? Kayla's throat tightened. You shouldn't have come back. Why not? Because this isn't about me. It's about power, about control. And you're walking right into a trap. Darius laughed, bitter and sharp. A trap. Right. Just like the trap you set for me 5 years ago when you told me you didn't love me. I was protecting you. From what? From... She stopped herself. It doesn't matter. It does matter, he said, his voice rising. You broke my heart, Kayla. You told me I wasn't enough, and then you disappeared, and now you're standing here telling me I shouldn't have come back? What the hell am I supposed to do with that? Kayla looked away. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix anything. I know. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Darius said quietly, I came back because I wanted to prove I was strong enough, that I could win, that I could be the kind of man you'd choose. Kayla's chest ached. Darius, but you're not going to choose me, are you? She met his eyes, saw the pain in them, the anger. No, she said softly, I'm not. He nodded, like he'd expected it. Then I'll win anyway, and you'll have to live with it. He turned and walked away, leaving Kayla alone by the river. She sank to her knees, her hands pressed against her face, and let herself cry. For the boy she'd loved, for the man he'd become, for the future they'd never have. The second trial was announced the next morning. Endurance, a race through the forest, weighted with stones, hunted by wolves trained to attack. Kayla stood on the platform and watched as the competitors prepared, strapping heavy packs to their backs, their faces grim. Her father gave the signal. They ran. Kayla watched them disappear into the trees, and something inside her shifted. She couldn't keep playing defense. She couldn't keep reacting. If she was going to survive this, she needed to take control. And there was only one way to do that. She would enter the trial herself. The forest swallowed them whole. Kayla stood at the edge of the tree line, watching the last of the competitors disappear into the shadows. 16 men, all of them carrying 60 pounds of stone strapped to their backs, all of them running like their lives depended on it, which, in a way, they did. The rules were simple. Reach the marker at Eagle's Peak before sunset. The first 8 to arrive would advance. Anyone who fell behind would be eliminated. And somewhere in those woods, a pack of trained hunters, wolves bred specifically for aggression, would be tracking them, testing them, pushing them to their breaking point. Her father stood beside her on the platform, arms crossed, watching with the cold calculation of a man who'd designed this trial himself. They'll lose half of them in the first hour, he said. Kayla didn't respond. The weak ones will panic, make mistakes. The smart ones will pace themselves, conserve energy. He glanced at her. Which ones do you think will survive? She kept her eyes on the forest. Does it matter? It should. One of them will be your mate. The word tasted like ash in her mouth. Her father was still talking, something about strategy and dominance, but Kayla stopped listening. Her mind was already elsewhere, turning over the decision she'd made in the dark hours before dawn. She was going to enter the trial. Not this one. It was too late for that. The competitors were already gone. But the next one, the third trial. Whatever it was, she would compete. She would step into that arena and show them all that she wasn't just a prize to be won, that she could fight just as hard, just as dirty as any of them. It was insane. It was dangerous. It was the only move she had left. Are you even listening to me? Her father asked. Kayla turned to look at him. No. His jaw tightened. For a moment she thought he might say something sharp, something meant to cut, but instead he just shook his head and turned away. Go back to the hall, he said. You're dismissed. Kayla didn't argue. She left the platform and walked back through the crowd, ignoring the stares, the whispers, the speculation. Everyone wanted to know who would win, who would claim her, who would be strong enough to tame the unmateable daughter. None of them knew the truth. None of them could see what was really happening, except maybe one. She found him near the edge of the training grounds, leaning against a post with his arms crossed, watching the forest like he could see through the trees. Thorn. He was tall and lean, with pale eyes that seemed to take in everything and give nothing back. He'd won his fight yesterday with a cold efficiency that had made Kayla's skin crawl. No wasted movement, no hesitation, just calculated violence. And when he looked at her, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Fear. Not the kind of fear that came from facing a stronger opponent. This was different. Deeper. Like looking into a well and realizing there was no bottom. He saw her approaching and smiled. Kayla Thornridge, he said. I was wondering when you'd come to talk to me. I'm not here to talk. No? He tilted his head, studying her. Then what are you here for? To figure out who you are. I'm a competitor, just like the others. No, Kayla said quietly. You're not. His smile widened. Clever girl. Who sent you? No one sent me. I came of my own accord. Liar. Thorn laughed, low and soft. You're right, I am a liar, but not about this. He pushed off the post and took a step closer. I came because I heard there was something interesting happening here, a mating trial, a pack in turmoil, and at the center of it all, a woman everyone calls cursed. And what do you want? The same thing everyone else wants, power, control, a foothold in something bigger. He paused. But unlike the others, I'm not interested in pretending this is about honor or tradition. This is a transaction, and I'm here to see it through. Kayla's hands curled into fists. You're working with Lucien. Thorn's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, maybe. Or approval. Lucien is an associate, he said carefully. We have mutual interests. He's using you. Perhaps. Or perhaps I'm using him. Thorn leaned in, his voice dropping. Either way, the result is the same. Someone will win this trial, and when they do, this pack will change hands. The only question is whether you'll be smart enough to survive what comes next. Kayla stepped back. Stay away from me. I'm afraid that's not possible, Thorn said. We're all in this together now. Like it or not. He turned and walked away, leaving Kayla standing alone in the dirt. Her heart was racing. Thorn wasn't just another competitor. He was a weapon, a tool Lucien had brought in to ensure the outcome he wanted. And if Thorn won, if he became her mate, then Lucien would have complete control. Not just over her, but over the entire pack. She had to stop it. But how? The sound of shouting pulled her from her thoughts. She turned and saw a crowd gathering near the southern edge of the training grounds. People were running, voices raised in alarm. Kayla's stomach dropped. Something had gone wrong. She pushed through the crowd and saw them. 3 men, bloodied and limping, being carried back toward the hall. 2 of them were unconscious. The third was awake, but barely, his face pale and his breathing shallow. What happened? Someone shouted. The hunters, one of the men gasped. They didn't just chase us, they attacked, like they were trying to kill us. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Kayla's father appeared, his expression dark. Where are the others? Still out there. Or dead, I don't know. Her father's jaw tightened. He turned to one of the pack warriors. Send a search party. Now. Alpha, the trial. I said now. The warrior nodded and ran. Kayla stood frozen, her mind racing. The hunters weren't supposed to kill. They were supposed to test, push, but not kill. Unless someone had changed the orders. Unless someone wanted blood. She looked across the crowd and saw Lucien standing near the edge, his expression calm, his hands folded. He was watching her father with the faint hint of a smile. And Kayla knew. He'd done this. He'd changed the rules without telling anyone, turned the trial into a slaughter, all to create chaos, to destabilize her father's authority, to make the pack question whether he was still fit to lead. It was brilliant. It was monstrous, and no one would ever believe her if she tried to tell them. The search party returned an hour later. They brought back 2 more bodies. One was a young alpha from the Southern Territories, his throat torn out. The other was an older wolf Kayla didn't recognize. His chest caved in like he'd been trampled. The crowd went silent as the bodies were laid out in front of the hall. Her father stood over them, his face unreadable. This is a tragedy, he said finally. But the trial continues. The remaining competitors will be given time to recover. And then we move forward. Alpha, with all respect, Woodham, one of the elders began. The trial continues, her father repeated, his voice hard. No one argued, but Kayla could see the doubt in their eyes, the fear. Her father was losing control, and Lucien was winning. That night, Kayla couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. She kept seeing the bodies, the blood, the way Lucien had smiled. She had to do something. But what? A soft knock at her door pulled her from her thoughts. Kayla? Mira. Kayla sat up. Come in. Mira slipped inside, closing the door quietly behind her. She looked pale, her eyes red like she'd been crying. I heard about the trial, she said. About the men who died. I know. Father's not stopping it. He's just moving forward, like nothing happened. He doesn't have a choice, Kayla said. If he stops the trial now, he looks weak. And if he looks weak, someone else will challenge him for leadership. Someone like Lucien. Kayla's breath caught. What? Mira sat down on the edge of the bed, wrapping her arms around herself. I'm not blind, Kayla. I see the way he looks at Father, the way he talks to the elders, like he's already in charge, like he's just waiting for the right moment to take over. Kayla stared at her sister. You see it? Of course I see it. I just don't understand why no one else does. For a moment, Kayla couldn't speak. All this time, she'd thought she was alone, that she was the only one who could see through Lucien's mask. But Mira, sweet, gentle Mira, had seen it too. Why didn't you say anything? Kayla asked. Because I'm scared, Mira whispered. Every time I try to tell someone, the words get stuck, like something's stopping me. And when I look at Lucien, it's like there's 2 versions of him, the one everyone else sees and the one I see. And I don't know which one is real. Kayla reached for her sister's hand. The one you see is real. The other one is a lie. Then why does everyone believe the lie? Because he makes them. Mira looked at her, her eyes wide. How? Kayla hesitated. She'd never told anyone the full truth, never put it into words. But Mira deserved to know. He has power, Kayla said quietly. Not the kind you can see. The kind that gets inside your head, changes the way you think, makes you believe things that aren't true. Like magic? Something like that. Mira was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, And you're immune? Yes. Why? Because of what I am. What are you? Kayla pulled her hand back. I can't tell you that. Why not? Because if I do, you'll be in danger. More danger than you already are. Mira's eyes filled with tears. Kayla, I'm already in danger. We all are. If Lucien takes over, he won't. How do you know? Because I'm going to stop him. Mira stared at her. How? I don't know yet, Kayla admitted, but I'll find a way. Mira reached for her again, gripping her hand tightly. Promise me you won't do anything stupid. Kayla smiled, bitter and tired. I can't promise that. Kayla, go back to your room, Mira. Get some sleep. And whatever happens in the next few days, stay away from Lucien. Don't talk to him. Don't let him in your head. What are you going to do? What I should have done years ago. The third trial was announced the next morning. Strategy: a poisoned maze. Kayla stood in the crowd, listening as her father explained the rules. The remaining 8 competitors would enter the maze one at a time. Inside, they would face traps, puzzles, and poison, delivered through darts, gas, or contact with certain surfaces. The goal was simple: find the exit. The first 4 to escape would advance to the final trial. And what happens to the ones who don't make it out? Someone asked. Her father's expression was grim. They'll be retrieved, eventually. The crowd murmured. Kayla's hands were shaking. This was it. This was the trial she would enter. She waited until her father finished speaking, waited until the competitors began to gather near the entrance to the maze, and then she stepped forward. Father! He turned, surprised. Kayla, what are you— I want to compete. Silence. Every head in the crowd turned toward her. Her father stared at her like she'd lost her mind. What did you say? I want to compete in the trial. Absolutely not. Why not? Because you're not a competitor. You're— The prize? Kayla stepped closer, her voice rising. Is that what I am? Just something to be won? Something to be handed over to whoever survives your games? Her father's jaw tightened. Kayla, this is not the time. This is exactly the time. She turned to face the crowd, her heart pounding. You all want to know if I'm worthy of being an alpha's daughter, if I'm strong enough, brave enough. Well, here's your chance to find out. Let me compete. Let me prove myself. And if I fail, if I can't make it through the maze, then I'll accept whatever mate you choose for me without complaint. The crowd erupted. Some were shouting in approval, others in outrage. Her father grabbed her arm, pulling her aside. What the hell are you doing? Taking control, Kayla said. You're making a fool of yourself. And of me. Then stop me. Forbid it. Tell everyone I'm too weak to compete. Her father's eyes narrowed. He knew the trap she'd laid. If he refused, he would look like he didn't believe in her, like he was protecting her because she couldn't protect herself. And in a pack like Thornridge, that kind of weakness was unforgivable. Fine, he said finally. You want to compete? Compete. But if you fail, you will honor your word. No more arguments, no more defiance. Agreed. He released her arm and stepped back. Kayla turned to the crowd. I'll enter the maze last, she said. After the others. Her father nodded. So be it. The competitors were staring at her. Some looked amused, others looked angry. Darius looked like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. And Lucien was smiling, like he'd been waiting for this all along. The first competitor entered the maze at noon. Kayla watched from the edge of the crowd as he disappeared into the darkness. The maze had been built in the old stone quarry, a twisting labyrinth of walls and tunnels carved into the rock. No one could see inside. No one could hear what was happening. They just had to wait. 20 minutes later, the first man stumbled out, his face pale, his hands shaking. He'd made it, barely. The second competitor didn't come out at all. After an hour, her father sent men in to retrieve him. They found him unconscious, foam at the corners of his mouth, his skin covered in angry red welts. He was still breathing, but only just. The third and fourth competitors made it through, bloodied, exhausted, but alive. The fifth didn't. By the time the sun began to set, only 3 men had successfully escaped the maze, which meant 1 more spot remained, and 3 competitors left to fight for it. Darius, Thorn, and Kayla. Her father looked at her. You can still withdraw. No. Kayla, I said no. He sighed and turned to Darius. You're next. Darius stepped forward. He didn't look at Kayla, didn't acknowledge her. He just walked to the entrance of the maze and disappeared inside. Kayla waited. The crowd waited. 30 minutes passed. 40. 50. And then finally, Darius emerged. He was bleeding from a cut above his eye, and his hands were covered in burns, but he was alive. He'd made it. The crowd cheered. Her father nodded, satisfied. Thorn, he said, you're next. Thorn stepped forward, calm as ever. He glanced at Kayla as he passed. "See you on the other side," he said. And then he was gone. Kayla's heart was pounding. This was it. Thorn would make it through. She was sure of it. He was too controlled, too precise to fail, which meant the final spot was already filled, which meant she would have to be faster, better, perfect. 20 minutes later, Thorn emerged. Not a scratch on him. He smiled at her as he walked past. Her father turned to Kayla. "Your turn." Kayla stepped forward. The entrance to the maze loomed in front of her, dark and silent. She took a breath and stepped inside. The darkness was absolute. Kayla moved slowly, her hands trailing along the stone walls, feeling for traps. The air was thick and damp, heavy with the scent of earth and something else. Something chemical. Poison. She kept her breathing shallow. The first trap came 10 feet in, a pressure plate beneath her foot. She felt it shift and threw herself backward just as a volley of darts shot out from the walls. They clattered against the stone where she'd been standing. Kayla's heart raced. She got to her feet and kept moving. The maze twisted and turned, each passage looking the same as the last. She tried to keep track of the direction she was heading, but it was impossible. The darkness disoriented her, made her doubt every step, and then she heard it, a hissing sound. Gas. Kayla dropped to the ground, covering her mouth and nose with her sleeve. The gas was heavier than air. It would sink. If she stayed low, she might avoid the worst of it. She crawled forward, her lungs burning, her eyes watering. The passage opened into a wider chamber. In the center was a pedestal. On the pedestal was a vial, and beside the vial was a note. Kayla crawled closer, squinting in the dim light. The note read, "Drink to proceed, refuse and die here." She stared at the vial. It could be poison. It could be the antidote. It could be nothing. There was no way to know. Kayla picked up the vial, her hands shaking. This was the test, not strength, not speed, trust, or the willingness to gamble with her own life. She uncorked the vial and drank. The liquid burned going down. She gasped, doubling over, waiting for the pain, waiting for her body to shut down. But nothing happened. Slowly the burning faded. She stood. A door on the far side of the chamber slid open. Kayla walked through. The passage beyond was shorter, clearer, and at the end, she could see light. She ran, burst out of the maze into the fading sunlight, gasping, her legs shaking. The crowd stared at her in stunned silence. Her father stood. "How long?" One of the timekeepers checked his watch. 18 minutes. 18. Faster than anyone, faster than Darius, faster than Thorn. Her father's expression was unreadable. "Kayla Thornridge has advanced to the final trial." The crowd erupted, some cheering, some shouting in outrage. Kayla stood there, shaking, covered in dirt and sweat, and met her father's eyes. She'd done it. She'd proven herself. But as she looked across the crowd and saw Lucien watching her with that same calm smile, she realized something. This wasn't a victory. This was exactly what he wanted. This wasn't a victory. This was exactly what he wanted. Kayla stood in the center of the arena, breathing hard, her body trembling from exertion and adrenaline. The crowd's noise washed over her like a wave, some cheering, some jeering, all of them talking about her like she wasn't standing right there. But she barely heard them. Her eyes were locked on Lucien. He stood behind her father's chair, hands clasped loosely in front of him, that serene smile still on his face. He looked pleased, not surprised, not concerned, just pleased, like a chess player who'd just watched his opponent make exactly the move he'd anticipated. And Kayla realized with a sickening clarity that she'd walked straight into his trap. By entering the trial, she hadn't taken control. She'd given him exactly what he needed, a spectacle. Proof that she was difficult, unpredictable, dangerous. Proof that whoever won her would have to be strong enough to handle her. And when that person won, when they claimed her and stood beside her father as the future alpha, Lucien would already have them under his control. She'd thought she was changing the game, but she'd just made it easier for him to win. "Clear the arena," her father said, his voice cutting through the noise. "The trial is over for today. We'll announce the final challenge tomorrow at dawn." The crowd began to disperse, still murmuring, still staring. Kayla stood frozen, her legs refusing to move. Her father approached her, his expression unreadable. "That was reckless." "I know. You could have died in there." "I didn't." He studied her for a long moment. What are you trying to prove, Kayla? That I'm not helpless. No one thinks you're helpless. They think you're difficult, and you just prove them right. He turned away. Go clean yourself up. You look like hell. Kayla watched him walk back toward the hall, his shoulders tense, his movements stiff. He was angry, or worried, or both. She didn't care. She turned and headed toward the river, needing to wash the dirt and sweat and fear off her skin before she faced anyone else. But she didn't make it far. That was quite a performance. Kayla stopped, turned. Thorn stood a few feet away, leaning against a tree, arms crossed. He looked exactly the same as he had before entering the maze. No dirt, no blood, no sign that he'd just navigated a death trap, like he'd gone for a walk instead of fighting for his life. Leave me alone, Kayla said. I don't think I will. He pushed off the tree and walked toward her, his movements lazy, unhurried. You surprised me in there. I didn't think you'd actually drink the vial. Kayla's breath caught. How did you know about the vial? Thorn smiled. Because I helped design the maze. Well, not design exactly, but I made a few suggestions, added a few personal touches. You're working with my father? With your father? No. Thorn stopped a few feet away. I'm working with Lucy Sien. I thought we established that. Kayla's hands curled into fists. Why are you telling me this? Because it doesn't matter if you know. You can't stop it. You can't expose him. You can't even convince anyone that he's dangerous. Thorn tilted his head. You're alone, Kayla, and the sooner you accept that, the easier this will be. I'll never accept it. Then you'll die. He said it casually, like he was commenting on the weather. The final trial is tomorrow, and I'm going to win. And when I do, you'll be mine. And Lucien will have everything he needs to take over this pack. I won't let that happen. Thorn laughed. How are you going to stop it? You're already out of moves. Kayla took a step toward him, her voice low and dangerous. You don't know me as well as you think you do. Don't I? Thorn's smile widened. I know you're desperate. I know you're scared. I know you'd do anything to protect your family, even if it means sacrificing yourself. He leaned in closer. That's what makes you predictable. Kayla wanted to hit him, wanted to wipe that smile off his face, but she forced herself to stay still. Get out of my way. As you wish. Thorn stepped aside, gesturing mockingly. Enjoy your last night of freedom, Kayla. Tomorrow, everything changes. She walked past him without another word, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. He was right about one thing. Tomorrow, everything would change, but not the way he thought. The river was cold and fast, the current strong enough to pull at Kayla's legs as she waded in. She didn't care. She needed the cold, needed the shock of it to clear her head. She scrubbed at her skin, washing away the dirt and grime, her mind racing. Thorn was going to win. She knew it. He was too skilled, too prepared, too connected to Lucien's plans. The final trial, whatever it was, had probably been designed with him in mind. And if he won, if he claimed her, then Lucien would have everything, unless she found a way to break Lucien's hold first. But how? She'd been trying for 5 years to find a weakness, a crack in his control, and she'd found nothing. He was too careful, too thorough. He'd woven himself so deeply into the pack's perception that removing him would be like trying to pull a thread from a tapestry without unraveling the whole thing. Unless the thought stopped her cold. What if she didn't try to remove him quietly? What if she forced the confrontation, made it public, made it impossible to ignore? If she could get Lucien to reveal himself, to drop the mask in front of everyone, then maybe, just maybe, the pack would see the truth. But how could she make him drop the mask? She stood in the river, water rushing around her legs, and turned the problem over in her mind. Lucien's power was tied to perception, to belief. He made people see what he wanted them to see. But Kayla was immune, which meant she was the variable he couldn't control. And if she could push him hard enough, make him desperate enough, he might make a mistake. She just had to be willing to pay the price. Kayla found Mira in the garden behind the house, sitting on the stone bench where their mother used to read to them when they were small. Mira looked up as Kayla approached, her face pale and drawn. "You're insane," Mira said. "Probably. Everyone's talking about it, about you entering the maze, about how you're competing against the alphas like you have something to prove. I do have something to prove. Mira stood, her hands shaking. You could have died in there, Kayla. You understand that, right? People did die. And you just walked in like it was nothing. It wasn't nothing. Then why did you do it? Kayla sat down on the bench and pulled Mira down beside her. Because I'm running out of time. And running out of options. And if I don't do something drastic, Lucian wins. So you're going to get yourself killed instead? I'm going to make him show his hand. Mira stared at her. How? I don't know yet, Kayla admitted. But tomorrow, during the final trial, I'm going to force a confrontation. I'm going to push him until he breaks, until he does something he can't take back. That's suicide. Maybe, but it's the only move I have left. Mira's eyes filled with tears. I can't lose you, Kayla. You're all I have. You have Father. Father doesn't see me. Not the way you do. Mira gripped her hand tightly. Please, there has to be another way. Kayla wanted to tell her there was. Wanted to promise her that everything would be fine, that she had a plan, that she knew what she was doing, but she didn't. All she had was desperation and a gamble. If something happens to me, Kayla said quietly, I need you to remember something. Don't listen. Kayla turned to face her. Lucien's power isn't absolute. It can be broken. But it requires something big, something shocking, something that forces people to see the truth all at once. Like what? Like his death. Mira went very still. You're going to kill him. I'm going to try. Kayla, but if I fail, you need to finish it. Find someone who can see through him, someone strong enough to do what needs to be done, and make sure he never gets control of this pack. Mira was crying now, tears streaming down her face. I don't know how to do that. You'll figure it out. You're stronger than you think. Kayla pulled her sister into a hug, holding her tight, memorizing the warmth of her, the smell of her hair, the way she fit against Kayla's shoulder, because there was a very real chance this would be the last time. The final trial was announced at dawn. Kayla stood in the crowd with the other competitors, her body tense, her mind sharp. There were 5 of them now. Darius, Thorn, Garrett, a wolf named Corvin who'd somehow survived every trial through sheer stubbornness, and Kayla. Her father stood on the platform, his face grave. The final trial, he said, is a test of courage, of trust, of the willingness to sacrifice for the good of the pack. He gestured to the arena behind him. In the center was a table. On the table were 5 cups. 4 of these cups contain water, her father said. 1 contains poison. You will each choose a cup. You will drink, and the last one standing will be declared the winner. The crowd went silent. Kayla's heart stopped. This wasn't a trial. This was execution by lottery. You're insane, Garrett said, his voice loud in the silence. You expect us to just drink poison? I expect you to prove that you're willing to risk everything for this pack, her father said. That's what leadership means, sacrifice. This isn't sacrifice, Darius said. This is murder. Then withdraw. Her father's eyes were hard. Anyone who's not willing to take the risk can leave now. No shame, no judgment. No one moved. Kayla stared at the cups, her mind racing. This was it. This was the moment she'd been waiting for. Because this trial wasn't designed by her father. It was designed by Lucian. And Lucian would know which cup had the poison, which meant he would make sure Thorn knew too. Which meant Thorn would win, unless Kayla could change the game. I'll go first, she said. Every head turned toward her. Her father frowned. Kayla, you said anyone could compete. You said this was a test of courage, so let me prove mine. She stepped forward. I'll drink first. The crowd erupted in murmurs. Her father looked like he wanted to argue, but he couldn't, not without looking like he was protecting her, not without undermining the entire trial. Fine, he said finally. Choose. Kayla walked to the table. The 5 cups sat in a row, identical, filled with clear liquid. She could feel Lucien's eyes on her, could feel him watching, waiting, wondering what she was going to do. She picked up the cup on the far left and drank. The liquid was cold, tasteless, water. She set the cup down and stepped back, still alive. "Thorn," her father said. "You're next." Thorn walked to the table, calm as ever. He didn't hesitate, didn't study the cups. He just picked up the 1 second from the right and drank. Water. He smiled at Kayla as he set it down. Darius went next, chose the middle cup, drank. Water. Garrett followed, picked the second from the left, water, which left 1 cup. Corvin stared at it, his face pale. "This is the poison." "Then don't drink it," her father said. "If I don't drink it, I'm out." "Yes." Corvin's hands were shaking. He looked at the cup, looked at the crowd, looked at Kayla. "Damn it," he muttered, and drank. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Corvin's eyes went wide. He gasped, his hands clutching at his throat, his knees buckled. He hit the ground hard. The crowd screamed. Healers rushed forward, but Kayla could see it in their faces. They were too late. Corvin convulsed once, twice, and then went still. Dead. Kayla stared at his body, her stomach churning. Her father's voice was distant, hollow. "The trial is complete. The final 4 will compete in one last test tomorrow." But Kayla wasn't listening, because she'd just realized something. Lucian hadn't rigged the trial for Thorn to win. He'd rigged it so that anyone could die, so that the pack would see her father as a monster, so that the elders would lose faith, so that when Lucian made his move, no one would stand in his way. This wasn't about the mating trial anymore. This was a coup, and it was already in motion. That night, Kayla didn't go back to the house. She went to the old training grounds on the eastern edge of the territory, the place her mother used to take her when she was small. It was abandoned now, overgrown with weeds, the wooden posts rotted and fallen. But it was quiet, and she needed to think. She was sitting on one of the fallen posts when she heard footsteps behind her. She didn't turn. "I'm not in the mood, Darius." "Good. Neither am I." He sat down beside her, keeping a careful distance. They sat in silence for a long time. Then Darius said, "That was a hell of a thing you did today." "Which part?" "Drinking first. You could have died." "So could you." "Yeah, but I didn't volunteer." He looked at her. "Why did you?" Kayla didn't answer right away. She stared out at the forest, at the dark shapes of the trees against the night sky. "Because I needed to see something," she said finally. "See what?" "If Lucian would let me die." Darius frowned. "What does Lucian have to do with this?" "Everything." She turned to look at him. "He's controlling all of it, Darius. The trials, the deaths, the chaos. He's been manipulating the pack for years, and no one can see it but me." Darius stared at her. "You sound insane." "I know. Lucian saved my life last year. He pulled me out of a river when I was drowning." "I know. He did that so you'd trust him, so you'd owe him. It's what he does." "Kayla, I'm not asking you to believe me," she said. "I'm just telling you the truth. Lucian is dangerous. And if he wins tomorrow, if Thorn wins, this pack is finished." Darius was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You really believe that?" "Yes." "Then what are you going to do about it?" Kayla met his eyes. "Something that will probably get me killed." "Of course you are." He shook his head. "You never do anything halfway, do you?" "Not when it matters." Darius looked away, his jaw tight. "For what it's worth, I don't think you're insane. I think you're desperate. And I think you see things the rest of us are too blind to notice." "You believe me?" "I didn't say that." He stood, brushing dirt from his pants. "But I believe you think it's true. And that's enough." He started to walk away, then stopped. "Kayla?" "Yeah?" "Don't die tomorrow." "I'll try." He nodded and disappeared into the trees. Kayla sat alone in the darkness, her hands shaking. She'd made her decision. Tomorrow, during the final trial, she would force Lucian's hand. She would make him reveal himself. And if it killed her in the process, well, at least she'd go down fighting. The final trial was unlike anything Kayla had expected. There was no arena, no crowd, no spectacle. Just the 4 of them, Kayla, Darius, Garrett, and Thorn, standing in a clearing deep in the forest. Her father was there, along with Lucian and a handful of elders. No one else. "This is a test of judgment," her father said. In front of you are 4 paths. Each path leads to a different challenge. You will choose your path. You will face your challenge alone. And when you return, we will decide who has proven themselves worthy. What kind of challenges? Garrett asked. That's for you to discover. Kayla studied the paths. They all looked the same, narrow trails disappearing into the trees. But she knew instinctively that one of them was a trap. Choose, her father said. Thorn went first. He picked the path on the far right and disappeared without a word. Garrett picked the second from the left. Darius hesitated, then chose the far left, which left Kayla with the second from the right. She started walking. The path twisted through the trees, narrow and overgrown. Kayla moved carefully, watching for traps, listening for movement. After 10 minutes, the path opened into a small clearing. In the center was a cage. Inside the cage was Mira. Kayla's heart stopped. Mira, Kayla, don't. Mira's voice was hoarse, desperate. It's a trap. You need to leave. I'm not leaving you. You have to. Lucian did this. He's testing you. If you stay, if you try to save me, you fail. Kayla approached the cage, her hands shaking. How did he get you here? I don't know. I woke up and I was already locked in. Mira's eyes were red, tears streaming down her face. Please, Kayla, just go. Win the trial. Stop him. I'll be okay. I'm not leaving you, Kayla repeated. She examined the cage. It was locked, the mechanism complex. She'd need tools to open it, or... She stepped back and kicked the lock as hard as she could. It didn't budge. Kayla, stop! She kicked it again and again, until her foot throbbed and the lock finally cracked. She wrenched the cage open and pulled Mira out. We need to go, Kayla said. You just failed the trial. I don't care. They ran back down the path, Kayla pulling Mira behind her. When they burst back into the clearing, her father was waiting. So was Lucien. Kayla, her father said, his voice heavy, you were supposed to leave her. I know. The test was to see if you could put the pack above personal attachment, and you failed. I know. Her father's jaw tightened. You're disqualified. Fine. Which means you will accept one of the remaining competitors as your mate, without argument. Kayla's heart pounded. No. This isn't a negotiation. You're right, it's not. Kayla stepped forward, her voice rising. Because I'm done playing your games. I'm done pretending this is about tradition or honor or finding the strongest mate. This whole trial was a setup. It was designed to tear this pack apart, to make you look weak, to give Lucien the opening he needs to take over. Her father stared at her. What are you talking about? Lucien has been manipulating this pack for 5 years. He's twisted everyone's thoughts, made them see what he wants them to see. And he's been using this trial to destabilize your authority so he can step in and take control. Kayla, that's enough. It's not enough. She turned to face Lucien. Tell them what you are. Lucien's expression didn't change. He looked at her with that same calm, gentle smile. Kayla, I understand you're upset, but these accusations are true. Kayla's voice was shaking. You're not human. You're something else, something that feeds on control, on power, and you've been poisoning this pack from the inside. The elders murmured. Her father stepped forward. Kayla, this is... Ask him, Kayla interrupted. Ask him why I'm the only one who can see through him. Ask him why every time someone gets close to the truth, they forget. Or they stop asking questions, or they die. Lucien's smile faded. Just a little, just enough for Kayla to see the crack. You're desperate, he said softly, and I pity you. But I won't stand here and let you slander me with these fantasies. Then prove me wrong, Kayla said. Swear on your life that you've never used power to manipulate anyone in this pack. Lucien's eyes narrowed. And for the first time in 5 years, Kayla saw something in his face she'd never seen before. Anger. I don't need to prove anything to you, he said, because you can't. Kayla took a step toward him. Because I'm right, and you know it. Enough, her father said. Lucien is a trusted member of this pack. He's saved lives. He's earned his place here, and I will not tolerate these baseless accusations. They're not baseless. I said enough. Kayla turned to her father, her chest heaving. He's going to destroy us, all of us, and you're letting him. Her father's face was hard. You're hysterical, and you're done. Mira, take your sister back to the house, now. Mira grabbed Kayla's arm, pulling her away. But Kayla kept her eyes on Lucian, and she saw it, the faintest flicker of triumph in his gaze. He'd won. Again. Set. Kayla sat in her room, staring at the wall, her mind numb. She'd failed. She'd confronted Lucian in front of witnesses, and all she'd done was make herself look insane. No one believed her. No one would ever believe her. And tomorrow, her father would choose her mate for her. Probably Thorn. And Lucian would have everything. A knock at the door. Go away, Kayla said. The door opened anyway. Darius stepped inside, closing it behind him. I talked to Thorn, he said. Kayla looked up. What? After you left. I pulled him aside and asked him straight, was he working with Lucian? And? He laughed, said it didn't matter what I thought, that the game was already over. Darius sat down on the edge of the bed. So I hit him. Despite everything, Kayla almost smiled. Did it feel good? Very. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Darius said, I believe you. Kayla's breath caught. What? About Lucian. About all of it. I don't understand how it works. I don't understand how he does what he does. But I believe you're telling the truth. Why? Because you're not insane. You're a lot of things. Stubborn, reckless, impossible. But you're not insane. And if you say Lucian is dangerous, then he's dangerous. Kayla felt tears prick at her eyes. It doesn't matter. No one else believes me. Then we'll make them believe. How? Darius met her eyes. We kill him. Kayla stared at him. You're serious? Dead serious. You said his death would break the spell, right? That people would see the truth? I think so, but I don't know for sure. Close enough. Darius stood. We do it tomorrow. During the announcement, make it public. Make it impossible to cover up. They'll execute us. Maybe, but at least we'll take him down first. Kayla wanted to argue, wanted to tell him it was suicide, that they'd both die for nothing. But she didn't, because he was right. This was the only move they had left. Okay, she said quietly. Tomorrow. Darius nodded. Tomorrow. He left. And Kayla sat alone in the dark, knowing that in less than 24 hours she would either save her pack or die trying. Kayla didn't sleep that night. She sat by the window watching the moon track across the sky, her mind turning over the plan again and again. It was simple, brutal, and almost certainly suicidal. During the announcement ceremony, when her father revealed who would claim her as mate, she and Darius would strike. They'd kill Lucian in front of everyone, force the illusion to break, make the pack see the truth, and then they'd face whatever came next. Execution, probably. Her father wouldn't have a choice. Killing a pack member in cold blood was an unforgivable crime. Even if they were right about Lucian, even if his death freed everyone from his control, the law was the law. But at least the pack would be free. At least Mira would be safe. At least it would be over. Kayla pressed her forehead against the cold glass and closed her eyes. She'd spent 5 years fighting alone. 5 years carrying the weight of a truth no one else could see. And tomorrow, finally, it would end. One way or another. A soft knock at the door made her turn. It's me, Mira's voice, barely a whisper. Kayla opened the door. Mira slipped inside, her face pale in the moonlight, her eyes red-rimmed like she'd been crying. You're going to do something terrible tomorrow, aren't you? Mira said. Kayla didn't answer. I can see it in your face. You look the same way Mother looked the night before she... Mira's voice broke. Please don't do this. I have to. No, you don't. We can run, both of us. Right now, we can leave and never come back. And let Lucian win? Let him take over the pack? Let him twist everyone until there's nothing left? I don't care about the pack, Mira said fiercely. I care about you. You're my sister. You're all I have. Kayla pulled Mira into a hug, holding her tight. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just don't go. I can't do that. Mira pulled back, tears streaming down her face. Then take me with you. Whatever you're planning, let me help. No. Kayla, No. Kayla gripped Mira's shoulders. You need to stay here. Stay safe. And if something happens to me, you need to get as far away from Lucien as possible. Promise me. I can't. Promise me, Mira. Mira's face crumpled. I promise. Kayla kissed her sister's forehead and gently pushed her toward the door. Go back to your room. Get some sleep. And tomorrow, no matter what happens, don't look for me. Just stay away. Mira nodded, wiping her eyes. She opened the door, then stopped. I love you, Kayla. I love you too. The door closed. And Kayla was alone again. She went to her dresser and pulled out the knife her mother had given her when she was 16. It was small, designed for close combat, the blade sharp enough to cut through bone. She'd never used it, never needed to. Until now. She tucked it into her belt, hidden beneath her shirt, and sat down to wait for dawn. The hours crawled by. When the first light finally broke over the horizon, Kayla stood and walked to the door. It was time. The announcement ceremony was held in the Great Hall, the same place where her father conducted all official pack business. By the time Kayla arrived, the hall was already packed. Elders, warriors, families, everyone who mattered in Thornridge territory. They'd come to see who would claim the Alpha's daughter, who would stand beside Garen Thornridge as the future leader. Kayla pushed through the crowd, ignoring the stares, the whispers. She found a spot near the back, where she could see the platform but wouldn't be easily noticed. Darius was already there, standing against the far wall. Their eyes met across the room. He gave her the smallest nod. Ready. On the platform, her father stood with Lucien at his side. Thorn and Garrett stood off to the left, both of them looking tense. Thorn caught Kayla's eye and smiled. She wanted to rip that smile off his face. Her father raised his hand, and the hall fell silent. We are gathered here to witness the conclusion of the mating trials, he said, his voice carrying across the room. 4 competitors entered the final challenge. 3 remain. And today, I will choose which of them has proven himself worthy of my daughter's hand and a place at my side as future alpha of this pack. The crowd murmured with anticipation. Kayla's hand moved to the knife at her belt, her fingers wrapping around the hilt. Not yet. Wait for the right moment. The trials tested strength, strategy, endurance, and judgment, her father continued. Each competitor showed courage, each showed skill, but only one demonstrated the qualities necessary to lead. He paused. Kayla's heart pounded. Thorn, her father said. Step forward. No. Thorn moved to the center of the platform, his expression calm, composed. You have proven yourself in every trial, her father said. You have shown intelligence, ruthlessness, and the willingness to do what is necessary. I believe you will serve this pack well. Lucien stepped forward, placing a hand on Thorn's shoulder. The gesture was subtle, but Kayla saw it for what it was. A claim, a mark of ownership. This was it. This was the moment Lucien won. Unless... Kayla's hand tightened on the knife. She looked at Darius. He was already moving, pushing through the crowd toward the platform. But before either of them could strike, a voice rang out from the back of the hall. Wait! Everyone turned. A man stepped through the crowd, tall, broad-shouldered, with graying hair and a scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. Kayla recognized him. Elder Varn, one of her father's oldest advisors. Varn? Her father said, frowning. What is this? I have something to say, Alpha, something that cannot wait. Lucien's expression flickered, just for a second, with something that looked like concern. Varn walked to the center of the hall, his movement slow and deliberate. When he spoke, his voice was steady, clear. I've been having dreams, he said. Strange dreams, about things that don't make sense, conversations I don't remember having, decisions I don't remember making, and this morning, when I woke up, I realized something. The hall was silent. I've been manipulated, Varn said. We all have. By someone in this room. Someone who's been twisting our thoughts, our memories, making us see what he wants us to see. Kayla's breath caught. How? This is absurd, Lucien said, stepping forward. Varn, you're not well. Perhaps you should rest. I'm perfectly well, Varn said sharply. And I know exactly what I'm saying. You've been controlling us, Lucien, for years, making us trust you, making us depend on you, and I don't know how you did it, but I know it's true. The crowd erupted in whispers. Lucien's face went very still. These are dangerous accusations, Varn. They're the truth. You have no proof, don't I? Varn turned to the crowd. How many of you have had strange gaps in your memory? How many of you have made decisions you can't explain? How many of you have felt like something was wrong but couldn't put your finger on what? Silence. Then slowly, hands began to rise. 1, 2, a dozen. Kayla stared, her heart racing. They were waking up. Lucien's control was breaking. But how? Her eyes found Varn again, and she saw it. The faint shimmer around him, like heat rising from pavement, like something was protecting him, shielding him from Lucien's influence. Someone had given him a charm, a ward, something that blocked Lucien's power. But who? As if in answer, a second figure stepped out from the crowd. A woman, small and wiry, with silver hair and eyes like chips of ice. She wore leather armor, old and worn, and carried herself like a fighter. Kayla didn't recognize her, but Lucien did. His face went pale. Nessa, he said quietly. The woman smiled. Hello, Lucien. It's been a long time. What are you doing here? Finishing what I should have finished 20 years ago. She turned to the crowd. My name is Nessa Greythorn, and I'm a hunter. I track and kill creatures like Lucien, things that feed on power, on control, on the minds of others. I've been hunting him for 2 decades, and 3 months ago I finally found him here, hiding in this pack, pretending to be human. The crowd was silent, stunned. Lucien's hands curled into fists. You have no idea what you're talking about, don't I? Nessa stepped closer. You're a thread weaver, a parasite that embeds itself in communities, twisting thoughts, rewriting memories, making yourself indispensable. And when you're strong enough, when you've woven yourself so deeply into the fabric of a place that removing you would unravel everything, that's when you strike. That's when you take over completely. She pulled something from her belt, a small vial filled with silver liquid. This, she said, holding it up, is a cleansing draft. It breaks the threads, severs the connections, forces people to see the truth. She looked at Varn. I gave one to Elder Varn this morning, and I'm going to give one to everyone in this hall. You can't, Lucien said. Watch me. Nessa threw the vial to the ground. It shattered and silver mist exploded outward, filling the hall like smoke. People coughed, stumbled back. Kayla felt it wash over her, cold and sharp, like being doused in ice water. And then, screams. All around her, people were collapsing, clutching their heads, crying out. Kayla watched in horror as memories returned, as the illusion shattered, as 5 years of lies and manipulation came crashing down all at once. She saw her father drop to his knees, his face twisted in anguish. She saw the elders stagger, their eyes wide with shock and rage. She saw Thorn back away from the platform, his confident mask cracking. And she saw Lucien. He stood in the center of the chaos, his hands shaking, his face contorted with fury. The mask was gone. The gentle smile, the kind eyes, the warmth, all of it stripped away. What was left was something cold, hungry, inhuman. You've ruined everything, he said, his voice low and venomous. He was looking at Nessa, but his eyes flicked to Kayla. 5 years? 5 years of work, and you've destroyed it in 5 minutes. Good, Nessa said. Lucien moved. Faster than Kayla had ever seen him move, he lunged at Nessa, his hands reaching for her throat. But Nessa was ready. She sidestepped, drawing a blade from her belt, and slashed at his arm. Lucien hissed and stumbled back, dark blood dripping from the wound. You can't kill me, he said. I'm woven too deeply. If I die, half this pack dies with me. That's a lie, Nessa said. Your threads are severed. You have no hold here anymore. Then I have nothing to lose, he lunged again. This time Kayla moved. She didn't think, didn't hesitate. She just drew the knife from her belt and threw herself between Nessa and Lucien. The blade sank into his chest. Lucien stopped. He looked down at the knife, then up at Kayla, his eyes wide with shock. I told you, Kayla said quietly. I'd find a way to stop you. Lucien staggered back, pulling the knife out. Blood poured from the wound, dark and viscous. He looked at the blade, then at Kayla, and laughed, a broken, bitter sound. "You think this changes anything?" he said. "You think killing me makes you a hero?" "I don't care about being a hero," Kayla said. "I just wanted you gone." Lucian's legs buckled. He fell to his knees, still laughing. "You'll regret this, all of you. You'll see what happens when the threads are cut, when the lies are stripped away. You'll see what you really are." And then he collapsed. The hall went silent. Kayla stood over Lucien's body, her hands shaking, her chest heaving. He was dead. It was over. Around her, the pack was starting to recover. People were sitting up, looking around, their faces pale and confused. Her father was still on his knees, staring at Lucien's body like he couldn't process what he was seeing. Nessa walked over to Kayla and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did well," she said. "I didn't do anything," Kayla said. You're the one who broke his hold. I gave them the tool. But you're the one who's been fighting him all along. You kept yourself free when everyone else was lost. That takes strength." Kayla looked at her. "Who are you? Really?" "I told you, I'm a hunter. I track threadweavers and kill them before they can do too much damage. I've been following Lucien for 20 years, but he's slippery, good at hiding. By the time I found him here, he'd already embedded himself so deeply I couldn't just kill him outright. I needed to sever his threads first, weaken him, and I needed someone on the inside who could see through him. Someone immune. Me, you." Nessa smiled faintly. "I've been watching you for 3 months, Kayla, trying to figure out if you were strong enough to handle the truth. And you were. More than strong enough. Why didn't you tell me? Because if Lucien knew I was here, he would have killed you to get to me. Or worse, he would have fled. And then this would all start over somewhere else." Nessa looked around the hall. "But now it's done. The pack is free. And you—" She squeezed Kayla's shoulder. "You're a damn survivor." Kayla wanted to feel relief, wanted to feel victorious, but all she felt was tired. Her father stood slowly, his face ashen. He looked at Lucian's body, then at Kayla. "Is it true?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "Everything he said about Lucien? Was it true?" "Yes," Kayla said. Her father closed his eyes. "I didn't know. I swear, I didn't. I know. All this time I thought—" He broke off, his voice cracking. "I thought you were the problem. I thought you were difficult, broken, impossible to love. And it was him. All of it was him." Kayla's throat tightened. "Father, I'm sorry." He looked at her, tears in his eyes. "I'm so sorry, Kayla." She didn't know what to say. For 5 years she'd waited to hear those words. 5 years of being blamed, rejected, hated. And now, finally, her father understood. But it didn't feel like victory. It just felt hollow. She turned and walked out of the hall, leaving the chaos behind. She needed air, needed space, needed to think. Outside, the sun was shining, the sky clear and bright. It felt wrong, somehow, like the world should be darker to match what had just happened. Kayla walked to the edge of the training grounds and sat down on the same fallen post where she'd sat with Darius the night before. She didn't know how long she sat there, but eventually she heard footsteps. Darius sat down beside her, silent for a long moment. Then he said, "You didn't need me." "What?" "The plan, to kill Lucien. You didn't need me. You did it yourself." "I had help." "Still." He looked at her. "You were going to do it alone, weren't you? Even if Nessa hadn't shown up, even if no one believed you, you were going to walk in there and kill him and face the consequences." "Yes. That's insane. I know. It's also the bravest thing I've ever seen." He reached for her hand. "I'm sorry I didn't believe you sooner." Kayla looked at their joined hands. "You believe me now. That's enough." They sat in silence for a while. Then Darius said, "What happens now?" "I don't know. Your father's going to want to make amends. Probably give you whatever you want, leadership, power, a formal apology in front of the entire pack." "I don't want any of that." "What do you want?" Kayla thought about it, really thought about it. What did she want? For 5 years, she'd wanted one thing, to stop Lucien, to free the pack, to prove she wasn't the problem. And now that it was done, now that Lucien was dead and the truth was out, she didn't know. I want to figure out who I am without him, she said finally. Without his shadow. Without everyone's expectations. I just want to be me. Darius nodded. Then that's what you'll do. Just like that? Just like that. He squeezed her hand. You've spent 5 years fighting for everyone else. Maybe it's time to fight for yourself. Kayla smiled, small, tired, but real. Maybe. They sat together as the sun climbed higher, and for the first time in 5 years, Kayla felt something she hadn't felt in so long she'd almost forgotten what it was. Hope. Inside the hall, her father was addressing the pack, explaining what had happened, apologizing, promising to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. And in the back of the crowd, Mira stood with tears streaming down her face, staring at the spot where Kayla had been standing. But Kayla wasn't there anymore. She was outside, breathing free air, holding the hand of someone who finally saw her for who she really was. The trials were over. Lucien was dead. And for the first time in 5 years, Kayla Thornridge was free. But freedom, she was starting to realize, was just the beginning. There was still the question of what came next, still the question of who would lead, still the question of whether the pack could survive what they'd learned, and still the question of what Kayla would become now that the fight was over. Those answers would come, but not today. Today, she would sit in the sun and breathe and remember what it felt like to be alive. And that was enough. And that was enough. For about 10 minutes, then reality crashed back in like a wave, and Kayla realized that sitting in the sun wasn't going to solve the mess waiting for her inside that hall. She stood, releasing Darius's hand. I need to go back. You sure? No, but I'm going anyway. Darius rose beside her. Want company? Always. They walked back together, side by side, and Kayla felt steadier with him there. The chaos in the hall had died down to a low roar. People were still talking, still processing, but the screaming had stopped. That was something. Her father saw her the moment she stepped inside. He was standing on the platform, looking 10 years older than he had that morning, his shoulders hunched like he was carrying a weight he couldn't put down. Kayla, he said, his voice cutting through the noise. We need to talk. I know. The crowd parted as she walked toward the platform. She could feel their eyes on her, some grateful, some confused, some still angry. They'd had their minds violated for 5 years, their memories twisted, their choices stolen. And even though Lucien was dead, even though they were free now, that kind of damage didn't just disappear. She climbed the steps and stood beside her father, looking out at the sea of faces. I owe you an apology, her father said, loud enough for everyone to hear. For 5 years, I treated you like you were the problem. I blamed you for things that weren't your fault. I forced you into trials designed to break you, and I was wrong. The hall was silent. You were the only one who saw the truth, he continued, the only one strong enough to resist him. And instead of listening to you, I called you difficult, unworthy, unmateable. His voice cracked. I failed you as a father, and I failed this pack as a leader. Kayla's throat tightened. She wanted to tell him it was okay, that she understood, that he'd been manipulated just like everyone else. But it wasn't okay. And she didn't want to lie. You did fail me, she said quietly. You chose to believe a stranger over your own daughter. You let him poison this pack because it was easier than questioning him, and people died because of it. Her father flinched like she'd struck him. But, Kayla continued, you weren't in control. None of you were. Lucien made sure of that, so I'm not asking you to apologize for something you couldn't help. I'm asking you to do better now that you can. Her father met her eyes. What do you need? I need you to stop treating me like I'm something that needs to be fixed or controlled or given away. I'm not a prize. I'm not a political alliance. I'm your daughter, and I deserve to make my own choices. You're right. He turned to the crowd. The mating trial is over, null and void. Kayla will choose her own path, and anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me. A few murmurs, but no one spoke up. Kayla let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. Then Elder Varn stepped forward, his face still pale, but his voice steady. Alpha Garen, we need to address the real issue here. Lucian may be dead, but Thorn is still alive. And he was working with Lucian. He admitted as much. All eyes turned to Thorn. He stood near the edge of the platform, his expression unreadable. He didn't look scared, didn't look guilty, just calculating. Is that true? Garen demanded. Were you working with him? Thorn smiled faintly. I was hired to ensure a specific outcome. Yes. By who? Does it matter? The job's over. Lucian's dead. I didn't get paid. I'm leaving. Like hell you are, Darius said, stepping forward. You were part of this. You helped him manipulate the trials. You're just as guilty as he was. I'm a mercenary, Thorn said calmly. I do what I'm paid to do. Nothing more, nothing less. And since my employer is dead, I have no reason to stay. You think we're just going to let you walk out of here? Garrett said, his voice a low growl. He'd been silent until now, but he looked ready to rip Thorn apart. Thorn's smile widened. You can try to stop me, but I wouldn't recommend it. Enough, Garen said. Thorn, you're banished from Thornridge territory. If you're seen here again, you'll be executed on sight. Now get out. Thorn inclined his head, a mocking little bow. As you wish, Alpha. He turned and walked toward the door. But before he left, he stopped and looked back at Kayla. For what it's worth, he said, you would have made an interesting challenge. Shame it didn't work out. Get out, Kayla said. He did. The hall was silent again. Then Nessa stepped forward, addressing the crowd. Threadweavers don't work alone. They plant themselves in communities and build networks. Lucien's been here for 5 years. That's a long time. Long enough to have contingencies. People he influenced who might still be carrying out his plans even now that he's dead. A ripple of fear moved through the crowd. How do we know who's compromised? Someone asked. You don't, Nessa said bluntly. The cleansing draft breaks the active threads, but it doesn't erase what was done. Some people might still believe the lies because that's all they've known for years. Some might act on orders they don't even remember receiving. The only way to be sure is to watch, to question, to rebuild trust slowly. That could take years, Varn said. Yes, it will. The weight of that settled over the hall like a shroud. Garen looked at Nessa. Will you stay? Help us identify any remaining threats? Nessa shook her head. My work here is done. I hunt threadweavers. I don't rebuild packs. That's your job. She looked at Kayla. But I will say this. You have someone here who's already proven she can see through lies and stand against impossible odds. If you're smart, you'll listen to her. All eyes turned to Kayla. She wanted to disappear. I'm not a leader, she said quickly. Maybe not, Nessa said. But you're a survivor. And right now, that's what this pack needs. Before Kayla could respond, Nessa turned and walked out of the hall, disappearing into the crowd. Kayla stood there, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes on her, and had absolutely no idea what to say. Her father saved her. We'll reconvene tomorrow. Everyone go home. Rest. Process what's happened. And we'll figure out the next steps together. The crowd began to disperse, slowly, reluctantly. People were still whispering, still staring, but at least they were moving. Kayla slipped off the platform and headed for the door before anyone could stop her. Mira caught her halfway across the hall. She threw her arms around Kayla and burst into tears. Kayla held her sister, stroking her hair, murmuring reassurances she wasn't sure she believed. It's okay. It's over. We're safe now. I thought you were going to die, Mira sobbed. I thought he was going to kill you and I'd never see you again. I'm right here. Promise me you won't do anything like that ever again. Kayla pulled back and looked at her sister. I can't promise that. Kayla, but I promise I'll try to stay alive. How's that? Mira laughed through her tears. It'll have to do. They stood there for a moment, holding each other, and Kayla realized with a sharp pang that this was the first time in years they'd embraced without the shadow of Lucian between them. It felt like coming home. Eventually, Mira pulled back, wiping her eyes. What are you going to do now? I don't know, Kayla admitted. I haven't thought that far ahead. You should rest. You look exhausted. I am exhausted. Then go. I'll handle Father. I'll make sure he doesn't do anything stupid while you're gone. Kayla smiled. When did you get so bossy? I learned from the best. Kayla kissed her sister's forehead and walked out of the hall, Darius falling into step beside her. They walked in silence until they reached the edge of the forest, and then Darius said, So, what now? Everyone keeps asking me that. Because everyone wants to know. Kayla stopped and looked up at the sky. It was late afternoon now, the sun starting its slow descent toward the horizon. The light was golden, soft, almost gentle. I don't want to be Alpha, she said. I didn't ask if you wanted to be Alpha. Good, because I don't. I don't want power. I don't want to lead. I just want... She broke off, frustrated. I don't know what I want. Then maybe that's where you start, Darius said. Figuring it out. And what about you? What do you want? He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I want to stop running from things I don't understand. I want to stop letting fear make my decisions for me. And I want... He looked at her. I want to know if there's still a chance for us. Kayla's breath caught. I know I don't deserve one, Darius continued. I left. I believed the lies. I came back here planning to win you like you were something to be claimed, and I was wrong about all of it. You were manipulated. So were you. But you fought through it. I just ran. He stepped closer. I'm not running anymore, Kayla. I'm here. And I'm asking, is there still a chance? Kayla looked at him, really looked at him, at the scar on his jaw, the tired lines around his eyes, the hope and fear and determination all mixed together in his expression. I don't know, she said honestly. I don't know if I can trust you. I don't know if I can trust anyone after everything that's happened. That's fair. But, she continued, I'd like to find out. Darius smiled, small, cautious, real. Yeah? Yeah. He reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. They stood there hand in hand as the sun sank lower and the shadows lengthened around them. And for the first time in 5 years, Kayla let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, things could be different. 3 days later, the pack held a council meeting. It was the first time they'd all gathered since Lucien's death, and the tension in the hall was thick enough to cut. People were still processing, still angry, still scared. Garen stood at the center of the platform, flanked by the elders. Kayla sat off to the side, trying to stay out of the spotlight. It didn't work. Before we discuss anything else, Garen said, I want to address something publicly. Kayla, would you join me? Kayla's stomach dropped. Do I have to? Yes. She stood and walked to the platform, ignoring the whispers. Her father turned to face the crowd. For 5 years, my daughter endured hatred, rejection, and isolation. She was called difficult, unworthy, cursed, and all of it, every insult, every rejection, every moment of suffering, was because she was protecting us from a threat we couldn't see. He looked at Kayla. I know words can't undo the damage that's been done, but I want everyone here to understand something. Kayla Thornridge is not the problem. She never was. She is the reason this pack is still standing, and she deserves your respect. The hall was silent. Then slowly, one person stood, then another, and another. Within moments, the entire pack was on their feet. It wasn't applause, wasn't cheers, just silence and standing, an acknowledgement, a recognition. Kayla stood there, her throat tight, her eyes burning, and didn't know what to do. Her father placed a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to say anything. But Kayla found her voice anyway. I didn't do it for recognition, she said. I did it because I couldn't stand by and watch him destroy everything. But if you really want to honor what I did, then don't just stand there. Do better. Question things. Think for yourselves. Don't let anyone, ever, have that kind of control over you again. She looked out at the sea of faces. We've all been through hell. And we're going to have to rebuild from the ground up. It's going to be hard. It's going to take time. But if we do it right, we can make this pack stronger than it was before. Slowly, people began to sit. And then Varn stood. Alpha Garen, I have a proposal. Speak. The pack needs new leadership. Leadership that wasn't compromised. Leadership that's proven it can stand against the kind of threats we've just faced. He looked at Kayla. I propose we name Kayla Thornridge as the next alpha of this pack. The hall erupted. Some people cheered, others shouted in protest. Garen looked stunned. Kayla felt like the ground had dropped out from under her. No, she said. Absolutely not. Kayla, Varn began. I said no. She turned to her father. I don't want to be alpha. I never wanted that. Then what do you want? Garen asked quietly. Kayla took a breath. I want to help. I want to be part of rebuilding this pack, but I don't want to lead it. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Then what do you propose? A council, Kayla said. Not just elders, not just warriors. A real council with representatives from every part of the pack. People who can check each other. People who can make sure no one person ever has that kind of power again. Garen considered this. And who would lead the council? You, Kayla said. For now. Until the pack is stable. Until we've rebuilt trust. And then we'll figure out what comes next. Varn frowned. That's not a permanent solution. Good, Kayla said. Because permanent solutions are how people like Lucian take root. We need to stay flexible, stay vigilant, stay willing to change when change is needed. The hall was quiet. Then Garen nodded. I agree. We'll form a council. We'll share the burden of leadership, and we'll do it right this time. A murmur of approval moved through the crowd. Kayla stepped down from the platform, her legs shaking. She'd done it. She'd stood in front of the entire pack and told them no. Told them what she wanted. Told them she wouldn't be controlled. And they'd listened. The meeting continued for another hour, but Kayla stopped paying attention. She slipped out of the hall and walked to the river, needing space, needing air. Darius found her there. He sat down beside her without a word, and they watched the water flow past, fast and cold and relentless. You turned down being alpha, he said. I did. That was brave. That was self-preservation. He laughed. Same thing, sometimes. Kayla leaned against him, resting her head on his shoulder. Do you think it'll work? The council? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. But at least it's a start. A start, Kayla echoed. That's all we've got, isn't it? It's more than we had 3 days ago. She supposed that was true. They sat in silence for a while, and then Darius said, I'm not leaving again. I want you to know that. Whatever happens, whatever you decide, I'm staying. Even if I decide I don't want you? Even then. I'll stay in the pack. I'll keep my distance, but I'm not running. Kayla lifted her head and looked at him. What if I decide I do want you? Darius's breath caught. Do you? I'm still figuring it out, but I think... She paused, choosing her words carefully. I think I'd like to try. If you're willing to be patient. If you're willing to let me figure out who I am without Lucian's shadow before I figure out who we could be together. I can do that. You're sure? I've waited 5 years, Kayla. I can wait a little longer. She smiled. Good. They sat together as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold and red, and Kayla felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't permanent. There were still problems to solve, wounds to heal, questions to answer, but it was real, and that was enough. 2 weeks later, Kayla stood in the clearing where the trials had taken place and watched as the pack dismantled the arena. The wooden stands were being taken apart, the barriers removed. By the end of the day, there would be no sign that the trials had ever happened. It felt right. Mira came to stand beside her, slipping her hand into Kayla's. Are you okay? Mira asked. Yeah, Kayla said. I think I am. Father wants to talk to you later. About the council. About your role. I'll talk to him. And Darius has been asking about you. Kayla smiled. I know. I've been avoiding him. Why? Because I'm not ready yet, and I want to make sure I'm ready before I let him in. Mira squeezed her hand. That's smart. I learned from the best, Kayla said, echoing Mira's words from days before. They stood together, watching the work, and Kayla felt the weight of the past 5 years start to lift. She wasn't there yet, wasn't healed, wasn't whole, but she was free. And that was the first step. That night, Kayla had a dream. She was standing in the forest, surrounded by trees so tall they blocked out the sky, and in the distance she could see a light, warm, golden, beckoning. She walked toward it, and when she reached the clearing, she found her mother waiting. She looked exactly as Kayla remembered, strong, fierce, with eyes that saw everything and judged nothing. You did well, her mother said. I almost didn't make it. But you did. That's what matters. Kayla's throat tightened. I miss you. I know, but I'm still here. In you, in Mira, in everything you've become. Her mother stepped forward and placed a hand on Kayla's cheek. You're not the girl I left behind. You're stronger, braver, and you're going to do great things. I don't want to do great things. I just want to be okay. Her mother smiled. Then be okay. That's great enough. And then she was gone. Kayla woke with tears on her face and a strange, quiet certainty in her chest. She was going to be okay. It wouldn't be easy, it wouldn't be fast, but she would get there. 3 months later, the pack held a celebration. It wasn't for anything specific, just a gathering, a chance to come together and remember what it felt like to be a community again. Kayla stood at the edge of the crowd, watching people laugh and dance and drink. She saw her father in the center, talking with the elders, his expression lighter than she'd seen in years. She saw Mira dancing with a young wolf from the Western Territories, her face flushed and happy. And she saw Darius standing on the other side of the clearing, watching her. He didn't approach, just watched and smiled. Kayla smiled back. Then she turned and walked into the forest, needing a moment alone. She found her way to the old training grounds, the place her mother had taught her to fight, and stood in the center of the clearing. The moon was full, casting silver light over everything. Kayla closed her eyes and breathed. In, out. She thought about the girl she'd been 5 years ago, trusting, hopeful, in love. She thought about the woman she'd become, hardened, suspicious, alone. And she thought about who she wanted to be now. Someone in between, maybe. Someone who'd learned from the pain but hadn't let it destroy her. Someone who could trust again, carefully, slowly, but still trust. Someone who was free. She opened her eyes, and there, standing at the edge of the clearing, was Darius. I thought you might be here, he said. You know me too well. Not yet, but I'm working on it. He walked toward her, stopping a few feet away. Can I ask you something? He said. Always. Do you think we'll ever get back what we had, before everything? Kayla thought about it. No, I don't think we will. Darius's face fell. But, Kayla continued, I think we can build something new, something better, if we both want it. Do you want it? Kayla stepped forward and took his hand. I'm ready to find out. Darius smiled, real, warm, hopeful. Yeah? Yeah. He pulled her into a kiss, and Kayla let herself fall into it, let herself feel it, let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she could have this. When they pulled apart, Darius rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he said quietly. I never stopped. I know, Kayla said, and I think I'm ready to love you back. They stood there, holding each other, as the moon climbed higher and the night grew darker around them. And for the first time in 5 years, Kayla Thornridge felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The Pack Council met every week now. They debated, argued, made decisions together. It wasn't perfect. There were still tensions, still disagreements, still wounds that hadn't healed, but they were trying, and that was enough. Kayla took her place on the council not as a leader, but as a voice. Someone who questioned, someone who remembered, someone who refused to let the pack forget what they'd been through. She wasn't the alpha, but she was something better. She was free, and she was home. Years later, when the story of the Thornridge trials was told around fires and passed down through generations, people would remember different things. Some would remember the bloodshed, the deaths, the betrayal. Others would remember the courage, the sacrifice, the woman who stood alone against a monster no one else could see. But Kayla would remember something simpler. She would remember the moment she stopped running, the moment she stood in front of her pack and said no, the moment she chose herself. And in the end, that was the only victory that mattered. She wasn't the rejected alpha anymore. She wasn't the unmateable daughter. She was Kayla Thornridge, survivor, fighter, free, and that was enough.